Okay, good afternoon. Once again, I have thanks. I thank the King Edward Hotel. This is one of the most accommodating staffs that I've ever had take care of anyone. I will definitely try to make this my home from this time going forward. When I come here, I want to thank the sponsors, and we've listed all the sponsors, and without the sponsors that have helped sponsor these talks, we could not be bringing these talks to you. This is good thing, this is the next to last panel. This panel on how to make your film screenplay and beyond. This is one of those panels that we have people from left to right, product integration, production services, producing it and distributing, and the producer of Hurricane, Sugar Hill, and Redemption. So one of the finest producers that I'm fortunate to represent. So I want to start with David, and we'll work our way down, and I'll talk a little about who you are and what you do and why you're here and so on.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Rubenstein. I'm the founder and managing member of Rubenstein Business Law. We're hosting the event here today, so we're thankful for all of you to come. We're a business and entertainment law firm that focuses on business owners and filmmakers, and the goal is to be there to add value to filmmakers. We represent filmmakers from A to Z, everything from the beginning stages of I have an idea, I want to make a script, all the way through production, all the way through distribution, and then making sure you make a profit at the end so that you can make your next film. And our goal is to be there as a resource to you, to represent you, to help guide you, to use our network to benefit our clients and encourage you to make successful films.
My name is Adam Fisher. I'm with Complete Production Group. I'm the president and managing partner. So we're an LA and New York-based producer service production company. And what that means is we take you from caution and confusion to confidence and clarity. 95% of the work we do is union-based. So it's a little bit of a different spin here, but we help you out in everything with SAG, DGA, Writers Guild, clearing union contracts with entertainment attorneys, SAG contracts, deal memos. We help review them. We work in concert with line producers, entertainment attorneys, agents, other producers, line producers, segment producers, you name it. That's what we do. Another core side of our business is we have an internal payroll company. That's something that we assist with as far as the insurance, getting the cast and crew paid on time, getting the pension and health paid on time. These are all important aspects of a production that actually today hasn't been discussed yet, that can't be overlooked, which can throw you totally off budget if you don't pay it the proper respect it deserves. So that's what we focus on.
So I met Adam in Vegas a few months ago, and when I heard what he did, what his services do for the type of films that they work in is take it away from the situations where you have to do it, and it'll take you time, it'll take you more money. It's a great service. It saves you so much in moving your project forward.
I'm Rob Deege, and I want to work with these two gentlemen over here. I do three things. I work for Glass House Distribution, which is a sales company, so we're here at the market.
We heard Tom.
Yes, okay, there you go. I'm also a producer, so I have a slate of projects, and I'm also a script consultant, so I help work with screenwriters, helping them get their stuff in shape.
I'm Rudy Langlais. I'm in the life support business. And the reason I say that is someone described to me once what the role of a movie producer is. It said that a movie is like a body that's always trying to die. It's the producer's job every day to blow life into it. Wow. So I'm in the life support business.
Look. I can tell you a story. I met Rudy many years ago in front of Shutters, and he said, and we had a meeting because he wanted to learn at that point about the federal incentives that existed at that point in time. So flash forward about 10 years since that time, I hadn't talked to Rudy, I didn't hear from Rudy, and I met Rudy because he was supposed to be the producer on a film that I was going to be brought on. That film didn't happen, but I'm very fortunate to be an attorney on one of the smartest producers that I've ever met. Okay. I want to start out by telling you that this panel can pretty much make your movie. I mean, everyone on this panel does something uniquely different that if you brought everyone on this panel to your movie, you'd be guaranteed to make your movie. I'm saying that without hesitation. This is probably one of the most stellar groups that you could have, from funding to producing to product services to distribution to lawyering and executive producing. All right, now that's not usually going to happen. So the question I start with David, if they come to you, it's not coming to me, but if they come to you as part of our team, how do you explain the difference between product placement and product integration? Because I know we have sources for product integration, not product placement.
Right. So one of the key things that every filmmaker faces is, how do I get funding for my film? And the traditional route is to find investors who are interested in your film and who will be willing to invest and potentially lose money and take that risk in order for you to make your film. But there are other ways. And as a filmmaker, it really doesn't matter what the way is that the revenue will come in, as long as it's there to help you make your film. And so one of the undervalued or underappreciated ways that exist is something called product integration, which is where you get companies to be willing to pay money to you in order to place their product in your film. And the idea is that it creates a new advertising element for their company or brand that they previously didn't have access to. You know, as we see more and more, in today's age, advertisers are really struggling because people don't want to watch commercials anymore, people don't want to read newspapers anymore, and they're trying to figure out where to spend their ad dollars. And film creates a unique platform to reach millions of people that they've never really previously had access to. So there are two kinds of involvement involving products. One is product placement, which is the term most people hear about, which is, okay, we'll do almost like a barter system. You let me use your trucks for my production of my film, and then I will use your trucks in the movie. But there's no money that exchanges hands there. The real optimal way you want to do it is product integration, which is to say, hey, we'll allow you to showcase your product in the film. You're trying to add branding to your film. You know, a very common example of this is, I think in Shades of Grey, they use the Audi car representing the rich family, right? And so automatically, you know, it's subtle, but they could have picked any car to use that, but they used the Audi because Audi paid a lot of money to have their particular car showcased in the film. And so producers, as filmmakers, can take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, BMW was very big on the Bond movies. So BMW paid $15 million to have the BMW showcased in that movie. I worked on a movie that there were a lot of computers at a lab. And again, it's only those films where the screenplay leads for the product to be a junior actor in the movie, to showcase that product. So I had a film where a good 30% of the movie was 20 computers in this lab. Sanyo wanted their name on back of every computer. They paid $4 million to allow for us to show Sanyo as the back of the computer. So that's an example of product integration. Not all screenplays lend themselves to product integration. So understand, it is an added resource, but not for all screenplays. So Adam, I have a lot of choices, well, not a lot, but several choices of who's going to provide production services for me, from payroll to incentives to all those things. Why you? Why your company?
And that's a great question.
Well,
Actually,
that's the only great question I had all
right.
day.
Well, actually, another question someone may want to ask themselves is, how exactly do I want to broadcast my content, and how much money I have, or how much money do I anticipate that I will have? Now, everybody in here is an independent producer, whether it's scripted or unscripted TV or film, and you have to start from someplace, and I totally get it. You're going to most likely do non-union projects to start off, and then gradually work your way up, and everybody's key cachet thing is to do a nice SAG project with a director that's most likely in the DGA, as well as a seasoned writer that could very well be in the WGA. So what we do, and actually there's a quick footnote that I want to add in here that my business partner Donnie and I always talk about. Our biggest hope is when someone has a line producer. That is the most valuable asset. I say at every panel I'm on, every seminar, hire a very good, well-seasoned line producer, because that's who I'm going to work in concert with. They're the ones with bookkeeping, accounting, and I was here for the sales distribution panel. One of the gentlemen even brought it up. Yeah. A line producer is really your lifeline. So I'll work in concert with them, becoming a signatory or working with them as consulting with signatory, clearing the project. So it's a tripod. We're helping clear the actors, clear the directors, the first AD, second AD, and as well we're collecting the IRS documentation. So pretty much everything we do is dealing with the unions and dealing with the IRS. You don't want to mess with them. I always joke around, my partner and I, we always say, IRS doesn't negotiate, SAG doesn't negotiate, I can negotiate my rate, but they can't. So you want to determine who's a loan-out corporation, you want to determine banking, you want to determine who's a W-4 employee. I know right now California has rules coming where they're cracking down hard, where they're using their independent name and social security number as a loan-out corporation. SAG does not want that, neither do any of the other unions. But in a nutshell, someone would come to us because we're handling the workers' comp, which is required on set, as well as disability and unemployment insurance. You don't want to mess around with that, as well as making sure everything looks copacetic and all the paperwork quirky. As well, everyone needs to be paid on time, the week after they work, as well as the pension and health respectively within 30 days. So these are core requirements that also need to be calculated in the budget before filming even needs to start.
Okay, but when do you come in? And during the development phase and pre-production, when do you start?
I would come in, first of all, they can't even film before they get the project cleared.
Oh, no.
So I would come in way in the pre-production phase. There's pre-production paperwork that needs to be filled out if anyone here has shot a SAG project, which I'm trusting most have. Generally, you have to get a film cleared about 2 months before you start filming. So I would come in about 2 to 3 months prior, and they would say, hey, Adam, here's my cast. How much is it going to cost me for pension and health? How much is the employer payroll tax going to be? And how much is your fee? And I would provide them a number and say, and these are hard numbers. They're not negotiated numbers. You have to pay the 19% for any theatrical contract. And to even add on, Corky, if I may, so there's different variables of theatrical contracts with SAG. There's ultra low budget, modified low budget, and then there's diversity incentives as well. Not to throw that in there where you're actually paying, where you hit the milestones of female and African American, disability, where you're actually paying them the ultra low budget, but you're able to work on the modified plan. Most budgets we work on are between about $250,000 to about $3 million, which I find the sweet spot. Generally up to $5 million. A lot of the compliances we handle in concert with an attorney or line producer. Once they're with a full studio, they're pretty much handling that inside. So from an independent standpoint, I am a pretty good viable resource. We are, our company.
Yeah. Look, I only deal in independent films because there are not many films that are made today that are studio-driven movies. Rob, hearing Tom speak before you on distribution and sales. I gave an example to Tom that if I have in the development budget $10,000 as a line item to get a distributor to consult during the development phase on moving the project forward. In your aspect of what you do, would you do that?
I've never done that before in terms of a distributor consulting. I guess it depends on the relationship and what they're bringing to the table. I mean, I like to find partners and engage them early on in the process of putting a film together, both on the financing and distribution side. I don't generally pay for it, but it's more about, if it's a project that they like, that they respond to, then try to help build the package together.
How do you help on the financing end of it?
How do I?
Yeah.
It depends. Well, I mean, I think about what the strategy and plan is. So, I mean, I have one movie that I'm doing right now that is like a really fun body comedy. So it's very domestically driven. So to me, it's like, there's certain financiers that I know may respond to that material. But also I'm not I'm not going out and talking to international sales agents on that project. I have a different one that's based on a book set in England, has potential to be kind of like a co-pro, UK, Australia, or UK, South Africa. And so on something like that, I'm going to meet with, European financiers, sales agents, and so forth, trying to get them engaged early. Rather than putting the package together, I'd rather get their input on the director and some of the cast so that they're kind of in concert with me.
Okay. Rudy, you tend to do, with some few exceptions, true stories based on true figures and certain situations. You produced Hurricane, and you produced two other movies that were gang-driven. I know that you were the co-editor of Village Voice. I know that you worked with Norman Mailer. I knew that you were the creator of Spin Magazine. I know that you're one of the most story-driven, character-driven producer. Are you driven to such an extent by those stories that you feel that they have to be made?
Yes, that has to be the overarching impulse. What I tell.
I mean, Redemption was an amazing movie.
Yes, and each of what I do, anyway, the way I approach it is that I make choices of subject based on what I'm interested in and what I want to say, and whether it's an issue. We made a film about the founder of the Crips gang who, while on death row, was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize and the Nobel Prize for Literature. That movie for me was about addressing the death penalty and the application of the death penalty, particularly in the United States. So,
and the inability, that's what was called Redemption.
That was called Redemption. The Hurricane was about literacy. It was about a young boy who couldn't read, couldn't write, pushed through the American school system, who is adopted by a group of Canadians who teach him how to read. And because they teach him how to read, he finds a book that was written and discarded about this boxer who had been convicted of several murders, who is now in jail. And he went in search of that guy. And as a result of his search, he met him. The group of Canadians that had adopted him took up the cause of winning the release of that man. And as a result, he was released from prison after 23 years. But the key there was literacy, was that this boy had learned how to read. And as a result, so it was the power of that. So I choose things, and the most important thing about the choices I make is that it's so hard to get a movie made or to make a movie. And so I believe you must choose subjects that every day you're going to want to get up to make that movie. And it may take you, this is the other part of it, it may take you years. So you have to, in making choices, choose things that you're willing to dedicate yourself for a very long time with an unpredictable business. So that's what drives me. I make choices on things. Corky mentioned the project that we first met over, and it's something that I never stopped trying to make because I thought it was important to address the subject of what women had to go through in the early 50s in order to get certain kind of health care, particularly abortion services.
Yeah.
And the underground life that women were driven into at that time. We started out working on that picture 10 years ago. The picture now, which we're going into production with next year, has become even more vital if you follow anything about the abortion issue, particularly in the States. There is a virulent campaign against women having access to choices about how their bodies will be.
Well, and that's why
controlled.
films are leaving Georgia, some films, because the governor totally outlawed
Yes,
abortion.
yeah.
I know clients that were going to film in Georgia and pulled
Yeah.
the whole film out of Georgia because of that. Rialto is the name of that movie, and I remember when we were going to work on it to begin, you wanted Susan Sarandon to play the lady. She's a little older now, and I don't know whether she could really do it. But I'm proud to be Rudy's lawyer. The situation when he spoke to my law school film class about a movie called Redemption, and this is where this gang leader who was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, who was sentenced to death, he became a cause celeb of everybody wanting to get the death penalty reduced. And you're talking about everybody in the art, most people in the arts. And Rudy decided, while he hadn't been killed, executed yet, to do the movie called Redemption. And he talked to my law school film class about it on Skype, and then he said the day that he was going to be executed, he asked for one person to witness his execution, and that was Rudy. And Rudy said to my class, after I witnessed the execution, I couldn't get out of my apartment, or place where I lived. I couldn't sleep. I was so affected by it. So these are stories that have to go out there. Denzel Washington, who starred in Hurricane, should have won the Academy Award for Hurricane, and they didn't give it to him. But they gave him to next year for Training Days, which he really didn't deserve, but he deserved it for Hurricane. And I'm working on a movie with Rudy now called Miles and Me, which is based on a book of one of the best friends of Miles Davis in his last stage of his life, and going full circle. Rudy's got Denzel Washington to direct it and some major stars to be in it, and it's the most psychotic, violent stage, right? And so these are the stories that we tell. I want to go back to Adam. Adam, when you also produce or co-produce, right?
Well, it's something that we're finding ourselves getting more involved in over the years. I've been doing this for a decade now, and over the course of a decade, in specific with what we do as a company, we have a golden Rolodex of producers, production companies, attorneys, agents, financiers, and investors. So when you're able to have all these relationships over the course of time, and by the way, just to add on, I love the whole concept with the cigar that you were mentioning before about the hour. I do the same thing as well. Another piece of advice I like to pass on is have as many meetings, professional relationship meetings you can before you take it to the next level of doing business with them. My line is, if you have an hour, make it breakfast. If you have 2 hours, make it lunch. And if you have all night, make it dinner. It works for me. I've been doing it for years, and that's how I build up a lot of the relationships I have now. And yes, I am producing, and
With Mark Gold?
yes, yeah, he's brought me on to some projects. I've been able to kind of help him out, consult on the side, and has some financial companies right now that he's closing deals on that I know he's hiring you for as far as an attorney on them. So, it's paid dividends. Yeah.
And his movie is showing here again?
Yes, so Mark recently produced a movie called Wishman, and we're in luck because the lead actor here, Andrew Steele's actually in attendance. Andrew, stand up. If you have a chance, please try to catch it. Corky, I don't know what time it's.
It is tomorrow at 12:30 at the Lightbox Theater 7. And I have a lot of my friends that are going. So I saw the movie at Cannes. A great movie. Andrew is tremendous in it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on from the producing on how this relationship happened is Donnie Schwenk, my business partner, is sitting over there. Mark engaged both of us to handle signatory consulting, payroll, insurance services. We did such a bang-up job helping him out throughout that process. Mark said, hey, I would love to kind of engage you on future projects down the road. And from there, we cultivated a friendship and now a business relationship from that. So that kind of was able to drift us into the world as co-producing and producing.
So I met Andrew at Cannes at our pajama party. And he was one of 350 people there, but we bonded. He's a tremendous actor, and to flash forward, he plays. This is not a doc. This is a narrative. He plays an Arizona police officer who, when you see this movie, goes through unbelievable trials and tribulations and develops a friendship with a dying boy. And the police officer, at the end, you find out that he was the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. And to flash forward, on November 13th, I'm going to Las Vegas to give a Lifetime Achievement Award to the actual founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. So it's sort of full circle that I became a friend of his, playing a real-life character who I'm going to give an award to. The final question that I want to throw out, wearing what we do, are there any particular budgets or genres of films that you feel that our law firm should be focusing on? Any genres, any type of movies, any budget levels?
Well, our sweet spot is independent films, everything ranging from budgets of $1 million up to $30 million and everything in between. But the key thing to really think about when you're thinking about your budget is, how am I going to put my production team in place? Who are all the pieces that I need to put this team together? It's almost like you're putting together a team, like a sports team, right? You need to think about who's going to be my director, who's going to be my actors, who's going to be my post-production, who's going to be in charge of the business side of the film, helping make those decisions, who's going to be my attorney, who's going to be in charge of distribution, right? You want to think backwards. What is my goal? Where am I trying to get to at the end of the day? How am I going to earn a profit from this film? How am I going to make sure that people see this film? We work with some clients, who have come to us and said, I was really driven to make this amazing project. And I just said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to make it. And I'm just going to do it with my own money and just make it happen. And she made it, and she made this amazing television program. And I saw the episodes, and they looked fantastic. And I said, okay, so now what are you going to do? She's like, I'm $200,000 in the hole, and I have no idea. And that's the problem that a lot of filmmakers have, because they didn't think in advance, okay, well, how am I going to make sure that people actually see this great thing that I did? How am I going to make sure I make money from what I did? You know, another filmmaker we were working with, this great documentarian, she made this amazing documentary about Barack Obama. And it was so popular, it was purchased by PBS. And this was, you know, back during the election time, and it ended up being PBS's #1 requested documentary.
And she made no money.
She made no money. And now she's trying to work on her next documentary and begging people to help finance it. But PBS did great. And that was because she didn't have the proper foresight early on to say, okay, how am I going to put this into reality? What are my goals here? And how am I going to work backwards to do it? And that's pretty much what we do when we work on projects together.
Rob, so I think that the advice of a distributor early in the stage of what you're doing is very valuable. But there are very few distributors that will come in at that beginning stage to give advice. Why?
There's just a lot of folks and a lot of projects out there, so it's really difficult. I mean, obviously you have to choose how you spend your time. Also, I mean, it just kind of depends on the level of engagement and how much advice you're giving. You know, we'll have folks come to us and like talk to us about, you know, giving estimates. So, you know, if we have a relationship there and, you know, there's something interesting, we'll give them, you know, maybe a range, give them something to work with, but we're not going to drill down and give them exact numbers at that stage. We talk a little bit about a term which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, you know, reverse engineering. And I think it's more important than ever these days to kind of think, you know, just listening to that last example, kind of thinking about what's the outcome of your project. You know, where's it going to be? Who's going to see it? How much are you going to get from it, you know, domestically, internationally, and otherwise? And trying to back into what that budget should be for that project. You know, and some people get upset about that and think, well, you know, then I'm kind of compromising. But to me, you're actually enabling yourself. You're giving yourself the best chance to make that by being smart about how you structure what you're doing.
So are you a company that decides any particular genre that you feel most comfortable? You know, comedies don't normally sell well over, you know, outside of the United States.
Right.
But you don't, and you do global financing. Would that stop you from getting involved if you thought it was a good United States comedy?
Well, first of all, if I'm speaking on behalf of Glass House, we're a younger company. So we started out, really our mantra was just find good films. You know, we like to say we're genre agnostic. So we've got, you know, dramas, action, comedy, horror, thriller, a documentary. It just kind of depends. But certainly, you know, certain genres are more challenging than others. So comedies, you know, they're a little more cast-driven. Drama, more cast-driven. If you have something that's more genre and horror and so forth, you know, then there's a lot of places you can take it, and it's not about the cast. It's about, you know, what's the execution, what's the pitch, does it work?
All right, our final comments. Rudy, if you want to give any final comment to the producers here and any advice that you would give them moving forward?
I think we are in the midst of a real revolution in film and television production. If you're paying attention, you've seen an explosion in sources for presenting content. It's never been a time where there has been so much, not only content being produced, there are 500 TV shows that are on. There's never been a time where there have been that many and more going into production, and different kinds of formats for production, ranging from the traditional studio to the streaming services and then in between. A company like Quibi, is straddling in between. This is a company formed by Jeffrey Katzenberg that is introducing very short form digital content, almost in the old serial way. They'll take an hour and a half, 2-hour movie, cut it up into 10-minute segments, and then present that on Quibi. So they have a huge appetite for content. So we're seeing an appetite that is only going to grow larger. If you look at what Netflix spends a year on development and acquisition, now that Disney is coming into the game, Warner Media is coming into the game, Sony is coming in. Amazon is already in. So your opportunities for presenting content have never been greater than they are now. The art of it is to be nimble enough to be able to take advantage of those possibilities and not to be so fixed on any one way of doing things, because there are 10 ways of doing things. If you have a 2-hour movie and you think it has to be a 2-hour movie and it has to be in the theaters, you've boxed yourself in. If you're open to the idea that it doesn't have to be in the theater, it can be on a streaming service, which has a certain kind of audience. If it can be a Quibi kind of picture presented that way. So you have to think. There's an expression I learned recently, which I've adopted. It says you shouldn't think in the box and you shouldn't think out of the box. You should think without the box. And that's, I think, what the opportunity of the industry offers now. So as difficult as things may seem, for those of you starting out or those of us who are continuing over years, there has never been another time that is only going to grow larger of opportunities to present content.
Okay. All right. Quickly, because he wants us to wrap it up. So final thought?
There's been a lot of great ideas up here. The thing that I would say is starts with good script, and I can't stress that enough. I mean, I was at a company, we put together many films over the course of 8 years, but I actually consider a lot of those kind of lucky because we oftentimes would try to push things forward, and to me the script wasn't there, and so I always say you only have one chance to make a first impression, and I always try to get that script as good as you can possibly get it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Final thought.
Yeah, my final thoughts is this. So everybody's here because they want to produce. My takeaway after all these years and speaking to other producers is there's 2 qualities you want to carry when you hire your cast and crew. One of them is talent. The second one is trustworthiness. Those are the 2 key core requirements that every producer wants. And just to add on what Rudy said as well is this is show business. It's a business. Don't get hung up so much on getting ticket sales receipts in a theater. You have SVOD, transactional video on demand, pay TV. There's other ways to make income, have a streamline of income in this business outside of just having it in the big screen. So use the new technology and digital technology as a financial resource.
My last comment would be follow through. There's a lot of people in this kind of business who say, "Oh, I'll call you. I'll send you an email." You never hear from them. If you say you're going to send someone an email, send them an email. If you say they're going to call them. That actually stands out because people in this business want people who they can rely upon. So make sure that you stand by your word.
Yeah, and the final thought that I have is that to sort of echo what Rudy said, there are more venues than ever before. They're thriving, the venues, for continued content, for good stories. And unless we provide them with the good stories to fill those venues, there's going to be blank screens. So get up and continue to do what you do. Thank you very much.